Welcome back, guys, to another video over here on YouTube. Today, I'm going to show you several clips from inside our newest course over on PLOmastermind.com, Winning PLO Tournaments by Christopher Frank. On Monday, I posted a video where I talked about the coach and the course in more detail as far as its length is concerned. Today, I'm going to show you several clips from inside the course so you get a better understanding if this is something that you want to invest into in order to improve your PLO tournament game. There is a bonus that runs out this Friday if you sign up for the course, and the bonus is as follows: $500 discount. You get a launch bonus video package where Chris is analyzing 5 additional hands from the tournament final tables over at pokergo.com. In some of the hands he's playing himself. And finally, we also give you a 1-year subscription to the preflop ranges for tournament players from PLO Trainer. So take advantage of this bonus, which runs out this Friday, if you're interested in buying Winning PLO Tournaments by Christopher Frank. With that being said, let's jump into the clips from the course.
So ICM is important mostly in 2 stages of the tournament, and that's the bubble and the final table. So we're going to start by looking at a large field bubble. That means there are still multiple tables left in the tournament when the bubble comes. So it's kind of easy to overlook the strategic importance of the bubble. So a lot of people know that it sucks to get it in on the bubble and to bust just shy of the money. But for a lot of people, that's the extent of their knowledge. And that's not enough, because it's a very important stage of the tournament, because you can, it's a great opportunity to win chips. It's an opportunity to bust just shy of the money. So you can make very big mistakes in both directions by either playing too reckless or by playing too tight and missing out on a great opportunity to make money. So the bubble is usually a stage of a tournament where the best players create a lot of EV, a lot of their edge, and where less experienced players just lose a lot of EV and lose to the best players. And I remember historically this was always in Hold'em tournaments. I mean, still is, but obviously people were worse a few years ago. This was always a stage where I felt like I make a lot of my edge, especially in live tournaments on the bubble. And it just takes experience, because there are so many possible situations, and it's basically about knowing when to take risks and when to lean back. And then as a big stack, it's really important how our stack relates to other players at the table. So for example, are we the biggest stack at the table? Do we have someone who covers us? And then even if we're covered, it's important, is the other guy trying to go to war, or is the other guy just a nit, so he lets us do whatever we want? If we are the biggest stack at the table, it's also important by how much we are the biggest stack at the table. So if we have way more than everyone else, it's easier to go crazy than if people are pretty close to us in chips, because then we could very quickly lose our nice situation. And I mean, in general, the plan is for sure to be very aggressive and take advantage of the situation. But it really depends on a lot of factors how aggressive we should go. So very important is definitely to make reads on other people. How willing are they to take risks on the bubble? So this doesn't necessarily relate to how they play normally. There are definitely players who are quite loose in general, and then on the bubble they are very ICM aware. And then there are people who are normally pretty conservative, but they also don't really care about the bubble. So there's basically, people on the bubble are different than what they normally play. So you have to try to get reads on this. This takes experience. And you're going to be in a pretty interesting situation, because you're going to be by far the most aggressive table at the player usually if you're a big stack on the bubble. So there are situations where you have to be aware of your image. For example, you have different preflop ranges, different ranges at play. Sorry, I made a typo here. There are different ranges at play. Because in a spot where normally you open 30%, maybe you now open 80%, and then your opponent might even have tighter defending ranges. So people might get to situations stronger than normal, while you get to situations wider than normal. And then also you usually have a very aggressive image, and then some people might not really care. Some people might be like, okay, he's aggressive, but I still want to cash, and they fold. And then some people are gonna not care that much, and they are tired of being pushed around by you, so they want to make a stand. So it just takes a lot of experience to know how far you can go as a big stack on the bubble. Let's check how things change when we are actually three-way. So we're going to look at button versus cutoff and big blind. So I guess the most common three-way scenario. Let's try to find differences between heads up and three-way pots. If you bet into multiple ranges, you bet into multiple people, you bet into more cards. So you have to be more careful with putting a lot of money in right away. And then once you bet, and for example, you get only one caller, you can still put in a lot of money on later streets. But putting a lot of money in right away, the problem with that is that bluffing gets really difficult, because if you have a bluff, it means you generally don't have the greatest removal, because you're not going to bluff with queen, queen 10 or something. You're going to bluff with some hand containing a queen or something. So you put in a large bet, it gets very expensive against two players who could have easily hit the board. And if you bet heads up, you only have one opponent who could have hit the board. So yeah, for that reason, you use smaller sizings on the flop. And it seems like the importance of holding a queen goes way up. We just close to pure betting queen X, and also two pair, we bet way more, 47% to 71%. Still bet more mid pairs, and then with bottom pairs, we're actually decreasing our betting frequency here. And yeah, it's interesting that the bet folds. We bet fold hands now multi-way that we were never bet folding in a heads up pot. Heads up, we're not really interested in bet folding two pair here. It's a pretty strong hand. The solver feels like it's a waste to bet fold this. Either it's strong enough to bet and then also continue against the raise, or it just checks back. But now multi-way, we saw that we increased the frequency of our two pair betting in general, and we also start, even top two starts bet folding right away. And this is against solver ranges, so I guess against what people actually check raise you here with, it becomes very attractive to fold bet fold queen 10. And this is a total number of combinations. So once we are checked to on the flop, 7% of our queen 10 combinations go for bet fold, 19 of queen 7, and over half, or not over half, but close to half of our 10-7 combinations just decides to bet fold. And yeah, the queen X, we betted way more, and yeah, our bet folding frequency with it goes up a lot. King Jack, I still didn't see bet folding here, but Jack 9 can start bet folding now. Let's look at the solver. So one more thing, a middle set and bottom set I saw get a little bit more passive. This is for stabbing three-way, and for heads up we have 22% checks versus 27% checks with middle set, and 44, and here we check 55. So we just become a bit more passive with our bottom sets here, and our middle sets, because it just gets a lot likelier that we run into top set. And I think wraps for the most part are still, Ace King Jack does more checking. I think it was pure here, so we do have to check some Ace King Jack combinations. So I assume a little bit weaker ones, maybe like Ace King Jack Jack, for example, blocking your own outs, no backdoor. Like combos like this have to check now that in a heads up pot would not check. But then the big wraps, King Jack 9 and Jack 8 9 is also a big wrap. 6 8 9 Jack King, 5 different cards to the straight. These are still pure. And yeah, let's just look at some hands and let's see if we can find some interesting things. I think King Jack doesn't really bet fold, so this is similar to King Jack that we have 8 outs to the nuts, so I assume we're taking a free card here. Okay. This is a hand, we saw that Jack 9 can bet fold, so this is a hand that maybe would be more passive in a heads up pot, but I think in a multi-way, the value of the free card just goes down because, for example, making a 9 is worth less, making a 10 is worth less, making a king is worth less. And then we look at this amazing removal of having the 10 the central straight card and two additional pretty good straight blockers. The nines are pretty relevant straight blockers here. Jack 9, 8, 9, they are in two open-enders, so I would assume we just get to step here now. Bottom set, we have to be a lot more careful now with bottom set. So this one just checks, absolutely no backup. I think we're just checking this one because our removal, we have two kings, which is okay, but 5-4 is just really bad. And I think we just need a bit stronger removal to bet multi-way. We could check if a hand like this is more interested in betting in a heads up pot. Yeah, this is a good example. Heads up, we would actually be betting this one because we just use a different level of polarity. In a heads up pot, we would think these kings are not worth that much as a free card because we don't really have great backdoors. Even the 6 where we turn an open-ender, it puts a straight on the board. Just no great turns. But two kings is all right removal, so we use it as a bet forward. And then heads up, we just use a different kind of polarity. We use hands that are a little bit stronger as bet fold that we might pot control in the heads up spot. Okay, so far I was avoiding monotone boards because I feel like EV differences for c-betting strategies are pretty small and they are somewhat rare. So for the betting, I didn't feel they were that important, but for facing a c-bet, there's actually a way you can lose a lot of money. And I mean, you could just check raise a lot of bad flushes or something. I guess that's not a good strategy, but that's very unlikely to happen. But what's pretty likely, a mistake that's pretty likely to happen is just not calling wide enough on these spots. They are very easy to overfold. So I decided to include one so we can take a look into how we can defend against the c-bet here properly. So we got a few facts here. Yeah, it's very easy to overfold. This is just one category. So we have a straight draw with one spade, not holding two pair set or a flush, and we're still continuing this category 79% of the time. If we have a board pair with a spade, this continues 95% of the time. This can just be any 3x, any 7x with one spade. This already excluded all the good hands, two pair set and flush. We're still continuing at 95%. And even queen x, we continue 98% of the time. So yeah, I think a lot of people will not hit these continuing frequencies and just overfold the structure. We got components here, it's very obvious. I mean, just, yeah, a few gut shots, board pair sets, flushes. In terms of card removal also, it's obviously the spade is by far the most important, but board pairs are relevant too. And yeah, let's just take a look into the solver and see how we are supposed to play this situation. I think a board pair plus a straight draw, I'm going to call. I think this is probably also a category that is always calling. Yeah, pure call. So this is, for example, a hand that I think a lot of people might fold here and you're losing significant. Board pair, a spade. So I assume you're just calling this. Yeah, again, I think these are quite easy to miss. Board pair, spade, flush, top two. We're not folding much queen x. This is actually one of the queen x that folds, but it's very, very close. It's just doesn't have anything nice going on. Board pair, spade. Yeah, just look how much money this makes. This makes almost half a big blind. So we're folding around 37%. King I flushed, maybe raise. I don't know. I can imagine. So let's say we have king I flush. We're raising this 33. Yeah, with a 3 it drops to 24. With a 7 to 18. And with a queen it drops to 9. And now 3-7 or queen goes up to 50. So we don't want to block the board pairs because then we can get value from two pairs and sets. That makes a lot of sense. Pretty simple rule. I think this has to fold because it doesn't have a spade. And let's say the 4 of spade, it would still be a somewhat easy fold. Let's say 8 of spade. What happened here? Ah, nice.
Obviously, I already saw some of your videos in regards to understanding blockers. Do you mind like elaborating like how you think about these exact 4 cards that you have in this particular spot?
I think one of the biggest leaks I talked to a lot of people about strategy. I think one of the biggest leaks people have is not understanding when to look at their blockers and when to look at their components. And I always look at my components first. So I look at this board and I see I have a nut open ender, which I know is on a rainbow board a pretty good hand. So then I look for additional things I have. And then I see that I have a board pair and a backdoor nut flush draw. So I think I have a nice bet based on my components, and I don't really care about my blockers anymore. And then if I have a hand that clearly wants to take a free card, like ace jack 9-5 without a backdoor flush draw, I would also think, okay, nut open ender doesn't want to bet fold. I don't really have anything extra, so I take the free card. And only if I can't categorize my hand in either of these two, then I think about my blockers, and then I decide, do I want to bet fold or do I want to check back?
So the components is basically how good is my hand in turn. Like in this case, if you get check raised, or if the pot gets built in any way, you're happy for it because of your components. Is that a fair way to say that?
Yeah, and then obviously it's always a multi-component bet. Like I bet now because I have good components, but he is gonna have whatever 10-9, 7-7, and he folds, and I got the best hand to fold. But I think it's an easy way to skip a lot of needless thinking and achieve a very nice c-betting strategy by doing it the way I just described.
Can you say quickly reference back the second point? So the first one is components. The third one is going to be blockers. What is the second one again?
No, this is both components and blockers, but based on the components, I decide whether my hand is strong enough to just bet based on the components. If it's not, I think about is it maybe a hand that really wants to take the free card, and then. But I explained this in great detail in the first few videos. At least I tried to. Maybe it's too complicated. I have to double check that. But yeah, the first few videos are basically about this exact thing.
So this is basically an auto bet now on the flop, given the components, and you will go for a bet. And I would imagine the turn is a turn, you will see in a moment, where blockers now become more relevant because we're not going to like the turn necessarily in terms of our equity. 7 of hearts, and our opponent goes for another check. So obviously our hand downgraded in terms of equity. We didn't improve to any of the great cards we could have, but the 7 of hearts interacts with our hand a little bit. So how do you think about this turn? Because you ended up double barreling here on the 7 of hearts.
So I have to say that turn barreling is a very complicated topic, and I'm definitely far from being as good at this as I want to be. So I think the removal for turns is we want to think about what improved and what got devalued. So hearts definitely improved. The diamonds got devalued. For example, like this. So Jack of Hearts is a very nice blocker. Ace of Diamond is a terrible blocker. The 9 is actually okay because 8-9 earned additional equity. So a 9 is probably like a king would probably not be that great because King Jack gets devalued on this card and Ace King gets devalued. So yeah, I like my Jack of Hearts. I really don't like my Ace of Diamond. And then I have some hand strength. Like I have a hand that could bet fold. It has some hope, but it's not like a huge problem to bet folded at this point. So I think both is fine with this. I would assume it's close if you plug this into a solver. Yeah, we got weak kings again. I don't want to raise and get 3-bet. I'm just limp calling here. And we may see the flop 4 ways. We're gonna check here. We had somewhat similar spot earlier, but now we don't have the 5 as a key card, and we have a hand that really doesn't want to get raised. So I'm checking, and Maratua is gonna go for the 1/3. So I think I have a very clear check call. I have nut outs with the king, ace, and 6 are still outs, even if he has a 3, and then quite possibly my kings could be the best hand right now, and I got a very nice price on the flop. I get 4-1, so it seems like a very nice check call. And then he's gonna half pot the turn, and it's a bit of an ugly spot. But I mean, the good thing is that we still have quite a lot of outs. If he just has a 3, we have every ace, every 6, every diamond, every king. So if he just has trips, we have a ton of outs. And sometimes our kings can just be ahead. And even if he has 5s full, for example, we still at least have 2 outs to the nuts. So felt like we have to continue here and then just fold some 5, 6, 7, fold some overpairs without backup here. Yeah, we checked the river. And at this point, we don't like the diamonds, I think. And we really don't like the fact that we don't have a board pair in our hand. So we probably check folding the river. We can have some queens. We can play some 3x passively. And we can just, if we want to hero call, we can just call an overpair with a queen or an overpair with a 5. But he actually checked back. And interesting turn barrel by him. It doesn't feel like the greatest hand to barrel with. I don't think you want to interact with the straight draws, because I can easily have a straight draw from the flop and fold that on the turn. So I don't think having a 7 or a 4 is too good on the turn. And then his hand just seems very middling, because it still has quite a lot of EV in the check back line. Jacks could even be good. The 6s could be good. His jack high diamonds could be good. So I think you want to bluff hands with better removal that have less EV in the back checking line. So just some random 5x, for example. Yeah, I don't love his line here.